Hey everyone, FFJmon here, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I have a movie review that I'm going to be doing with you guys, and the movie that I'm going to be reviewing today is none other than Pokémon 4Ever. So this is the fourth Pokemon movie in the Pokemon movie franchise. It came out in, the back of this says 2003. So yeah, 2003. And like I said, it's the fourth movie to come out. Takes place in the Johto region. Basically revolves around Celebi, the mythical Pokemon that we all know from the Generation 2 games. And it's about some time travel, so got some good stuff. I haven't seen this movie, like many of the Pokemon movies I've rewatched over the years, and obviously I'm doing all of it again now that I'm doing these movie reviews, but Pokemon 4Ever was one of those where I watched it when I was a kid, and I don't think I really ever rewatched it until now. So I just watched it today. I have it fresh in my mind. I'm excited to review it, and yeah, just let you guys know my thoughts on it. So as you guys know, if you've seen my movie reviews before, I kind of break them up into three parts. The first part is I just kind of give a plot of the movie. I just summarize what happened during the events of the movie. The second part, I give my thoughts on like the pros and cons of what I liked about the movie, what I didn't like about the movie, how it kind of compares maybe to some of the other Pokemon movies that I've seen before. And then lastly, I'm going to give my review out of 5 stars on how I thought about this particular Pokemon movie. So yeah, it's very nostalgic. I was glad I got to watch it. Excited to dive in with you guys today. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into the movie review of Pokemon the Movie 4Ever. And spoiler warning for anyone that doesn't want to get spoiled. I'm gonna talk about the movie in depth, so just be on the lookout for that. All right, part 1. We're going into the plot of Pokemon 4Ever, or the subtitle of the movie is Celebi, Voice of the Forest. So basically, to start out with, Celebi is in the forest and is basically getting hunted by a Pokemon hunter that's riding on a motorcycle. He's pretty, gruff and tough. He has a Houndoom and a Scyther, and they're basically like hunting down Celebi. Now, in the meantime, there's also 2 other people in the forest. There's this kid named Sam and this other kind of older girl who you don't really, I forget her name, but essentially, like, Sam's just kind of traveling in the forest. The girl kind of meets him and gives him a warning that, like, oh yeah, you gotta kind of watch out for the voice of the forest because it can take you away. And it's kind of foreshadowing what Celebi's powers are. It can time travel. It could take you away to a different time. So you got to be careful and not really approach it. So Sam kind of heeds the warning. The girl gives him like a loaf of bread. And then as he's wandering through the forest, he finds Celebi. And Celebi's like being hunted by that hunter. And he basically like tries to save Celebi. And then while they're kind of running away and everything, Celebi basically transports them like 40 years into the future. So then obviously that's where Ash and the gang kind of go from, or kind of starts off, because yeah, 40 years from then is now in the present time with Ash and Misty and Brock. They're, traveling on a boat. They were going to go into a forest to find some cool Pokemon. And yeah, obviously, the point of the movie is they're going to meet up with Celebi at some point. So before that, though, kind of in the backdrop of that, there is this other guy that is ironically looking for Celebi in the present, and we know him as what's his name? I think I have it in my notes here. The Iron Mask Marauder. So this guy kind of is like a Team Rocket mercenary, kind of is on his own. He's the Iron Mask Marauder. He wears like this mask on his face, and he's basically trying to hunt down Celebi. Now, in order to do that, he's asking the hunter that was hunting Celebi 40 years ago, like, where he saw Celebi in the forest. So it's kind of like ironic that he, like, basically the exact time period that Celebi is going to in the future, this guy is asking about the guy that was hunting Celebi in the past. So I thought that was just kind of ironic. And he has these dark balls where essentially he can like throw a Pokeball at a Pokemon, and if it goes inside of it, it basically like corrupts the Pokemon. So then when they come out, they can kind of do this guy's bidding and kind of become like an evil Pokemon. So he essentially takes the Pokemon hunter's Tyranitar and captures it with his Dark Ball, and then now he has like a Dark Tyranitar that kind of is mean and super aggressive and stuff, and looks really cool and can, you know, shoot hyper beams and stuff like crazy. And yeah, it kind of is a nod to the dark Pokemon, like in the Pokemon TCG, like the Team Rocket, you know, they're like the dark, like there's a dark Tyranitar, dark Charizard, like, you know, dark Blastoise. So I think that's kind of a cool tie-in, and I wonder if that's why they were kind of doing that. But anyway, so he has a Dark Ball, and he captures a Tyranitar, and he basically is going to use that to find Celebi. And let's look at my notes here. So yeah, Celebi and Sam are now 40 years in the future. Let's see. Oh yeah, of course they have like an intro fight where Ash, you know, they do like an opening song. Ash is fighting this trainer. He's fighting like a Croconaw. He beats him, and then yeah, he has to catch a boat. And now they're at Arborville, which is a bunch of like tree houses that are in like the forest, and that's like the forest they end up going to that they're gonna find Celebi in. And they meet Diana and her grandma, who is actually the woman from the past that gave Sam the loaf of bread. So she's still in the forest, but now she's like an old woman. She has like a granddaughter named Diana, and they're now, you know, kind of guardians of the forest, or like they kind of just live in this village. And yeah, then Ash and the gang are just going to go into the forest to find cool Pokemon. And also see Suicune, because when they were on the boat heading to the forest, they saw Suicune just kind of off to the side, or like in the forest somewhere, like while they were kind of going along the river. So they were like, oh, cool, maybe we can see Suicune. So yeah, so Celebi arrives with Sam in the forest, ironically at the same point that Ash and the gang are in the forest. And they find Sam, and, you know, Sam's wondering where Celebi is. Ash, you know, wants to know who Celebi is and where'd Sam come from. And yeah, they basically find out that Sam was from the past. The grandma basically recognizes the boy because when she was younger, she, you know, remembers him and said that, yeah, you went missing all those years ago. And yeah, we never knew like where you went. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. And then, yeah, so basically he's kind of out of time, and they need to find Celebi to see if Celebi's okay. So they find Celebi. Celebi's injured in like a tree. They basically take Celebi like to the river and kind of cleanse it. And that river kind of has like some special healing properties, or this pond, or, you know, it's like it's basically like a pond slash like lake. Oh, it's called the Lake of Life, and it restores Celebi because it has like special healing properties. So they take Celebi to the lake. Celebi's restored, and then they just kind of hang out with Celebi for a bit. And then they encounter Team Rocket. They encounter the Iron Mask Marauder. When they encounter the Iron Mask Marauder, Team Rocket, the Iron Mask Marauder guy says, they say, who are you? He said, a Pokemon lover. I thought that was funny. And then Meow said, isn't he from a Mexican wrestling movie? Because he looked like is it a matador, or the person that wears like the mask on their face? I thought that was funny. And yeah, so basically Team Rocket kind of teams up with the Marauder, and the Marauder has a Scizor and a Sneasel, and they battle against a Bayleaf and a Charmeleon, and they basically win. And that was before they took Celebi to the Lake of Life, so I kind of jumped a little bit, and it was kind of cool because like once they beat the Marauder and they were going to the Lake of Life, they basically had like 3 different Pokemon lead them to the lake. So first it was like an Ursaring and a Teddiursa when they had the injured Celebi. Like Ursaring and Teddiursa showed up and kind of, took them through the forest for a certain amount of time. Then a Stantler appeared and kind of took over. So the Ursaring and Teddiursa left. The Stantler then guided them through the forest, and then until for a little ways until there was a ferret. So then the ferret picked them up and then took them all the way to the lake, and then that's where they, you know, put Celebi, and then Celebi got healed. So I thought that was just kind of a cool thing that the Pokemon kind of knew where to take Celebi, and there was kind of a train of different Pokemon taking them through different terrain to get there. So they heal Celebi, they hang out with Celebi for a while. Oh yeah, Sam is a really good drawer, and he like is really good at drawing things. So he like draws Pokemon whenever he encounters like a new Pokemon. He shows Ash like his sketches in his sketchbook, which is cool. They get to, you know, experience the forest. They see a bunch of Metapods turn into a Butterfreeze. And yeah, they kind of just, you know, have a grand old time. And Celebi flies them around and stuff. And oh yeah, Misty like twisted her knee when they were running away from the Marauder, I think. And then Celebi was able to heal Misty, which was cool. And yeah, so then obviously the Marauder will come back. The Marauder then uses a Dark Ball on Celebi, so he actually captures Celebi in the Dark Ball, and then Celebi basically turns evil and becomes this giant like nest or cocoon, and then eventually just becomes this giant like grass CGI like monster that basically is like, you know, taking all the roots and stuff like from the forest, and is basically like doing the Dark Marauder's bidding. And yeah, so Suicune hasn't come yet. They take Celebi to the lake to heal Celebi, but then now that Celebi is evil, they need help from someone else. So Suicune kind of notices the danger and comes to kind of help. And yeah, basically the Marauder then is going to try to take Celebi to Giovanni, but then a little bit later he kind of says like, oh, like with Celebi being this powerful and this strong, like I don't need Giovanni, like I can basically just take over all of Team Rocket and take over the world now that Celebi's so strong and is this like giant monster that can shoot like hyper beams and just wreck everything. So he basically just gets a little too big for his britches. And then yeah, Suicune kind of saves Ash and Sam from like getting blasted, and then there's just kind of, you know, a big fight at the end. Brock brings out his Onix. That's a really cool sequence when Brock takes out his Onix to kind of fight against the Tyranitar. So it's like Suicune and Onix versus Tyranitar, and they basically like are able to defeat Tyranitar, and Onix like just whips Tyranitar like into the lake, which I thought was really cool because like Tyranitar was kind of getting the better of Onix because, you know, Onix has a lot of defense but isn't super strong. Tyranitar is obviously like a pseudo-legendary, so very strong. And Onix was kind of getting beat up, and then Suicune kind of came in to like help. And then like after that, Onix just like whipped him and hit him all the way into the lake, which was cool. And then, yeah, they were trying to, Ash and Sam, meanwhile, were trying to, you know, climb up the monster, grass CGI monster to get to Celebi, who was kind of like in the core of the thing, like controlling it. And they were just trying to talk to Celebi to have it like snap out of whatever trance it was in from the Dark Ball. And yeah, they basically help Celebi like snap out of it. And then ultimately, yeah, they help. And then Celebi gets like really hurt. Essentially, Celebi, I think, dies. So like Celebi, they destroy the monster. The Marauder kind of gets stopped, and Celebi ends up dying essentially after the encounter. And they try to again heal Celebi with the water, but they can't because one, the water got like terribly polluted after Celebi kind of went evil and was wrecking the forest. So Suicune then makes the water pure again, but that doesn't help Celebi. So Celebi's still basically dead because the Lake of Life apparently can't bring Celebi back to life. So I don't know how that makes sense. But what happens is basically Celebi, there's like a big light in the sky, a good old Ex Machina there, and out of that comes a bunch of Celebi. So a bunch of Celebi come. They take the Celebi that's basically dead, and they revive Celebi. So they do like this dancing ritual thing in the sky, and then Celebi comes back to life. And what's interesting is, since Celebi can travel through time, it's probably all just one Celebi, but from different times coming together in one timeline to save this particular Celebi in this point in time. But it's essentially like, you know, you can think of like alternate universes. I don't think it's that. Like, there's just one Celebi, but I don't know how the way the time travel works here. I think it works where it's like there's just one timeline and whatever happened happened, because basically, I guess we'll talk about the time stuff at the end. So, but basically a whole bunch of Celebi come. My theory is that it's all the same Celebi, but from just different points in time, basically come to save this Celebi, and they end up doing that, and Celebi ends up being revived. So then lastly, the Marauder is on a jetpack. Once Celebi gets revived, he tries to take Celebi away. They defeat the Marauder, and then after all of that, then Celebi and Sam go back to their original time 40 years in the past. And obviously Ash and the gang are upset. Ash has a bond with Sam. He hopes he'll be able to see him again. And then essentially that's the end of it. And okay, so the last part, so there's kind of a twist at the end, and I remember when I learned this, like back when I was a kid, I thought it like blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So essentially, if you guys don't know, you probably should know by now, but Sam was actually Professor Oak. So at the very end, when they're talking to Professor Oak, because earlier in the movie, when they were talking about how they saw Suicune originally, like when they were on the boat, when they first got to the forest, they talked to Professor Oak. He was like, oh yeah, I think I've seen Suicune before too. I've seen him only one time, but yeah, I saw him. That actually alluded to the fact that so Professor Oak's name is Samuel Oak. He was actually Sam, and the time that he was referring to was the time when he was a boy and he met Ash. So basically, Professor Oak is Sam. So when Sam went back to the past, he then grew up to become Professor Oak and then would eventually meet Ash. And now when it comes to the timeline, I think, so the grandma said, hey, like you've been gone for over 40 years, or you disappeared and no one ever knew like where you went. Now, you could interpret that a couple ways. One, you could say, okay, Sam has been out of time for 40 years and like was always missing. But then how would that explain the Professor Oak of the past then being there in the present? So my theory is that he wasn't actually gone. Like, yeah, he disappeared, but he came back. I don't know exactly what point Celebi brought him and Sam back to the past, like however long that he was gone for. But I think Professor Oak, like in the present, basically knew that this event happened because that's when he met Ash. And he had to... So essentially, two versions of Professor Oak existed at the same time. One that was the old Professor Oak, one that was the young Professor Oak. They were, alive at the same point in time, but that old Professor Oak, his childhood, one of the moments in his childhood was him going to the future and meeting Ash, and then also his older self existing. So I think all of that is part of his life and his timeline. So I think there's just one timeline, and all those Celebis that came, I think, are all just from one timeline. I don't think there's like alternate universes or stuff going on here. I think there's just one timeline, and him going into the future, and then him going back, and then him growing up. Like, that's all, It's a paradox, of course, because you're having two people exist at the same time, but I just thought it was really cool to see. And it was a cool nod that Sam was actually Professor Oak. And Professor Oak, the old one, never told them that, like Ash and the gang, that was actually him. But at the very end, he opened up his sketchbook, and you could see some of the drawings that he showed Ash when he was a kid. And And also Ash was like, oh wow, like when they were talking, like the young Sam and Ash, they were like, oh yeah, like we have a Pokedex that like, you know, catalogs, it's like a device that catalogs all the Pokemon and stuff. And essentially like Professor Oak was like starting the Pokedex by like drawing the Pokemon before the technology existed. And then he eventually, of course, invents the Pokedex to essentially capture what he was doing when he was a kid. So I just thought that was really cool. That was probably the coolest part of the movie. The rest of it, you know, it's not. Okay, so now let's go into the pros and cons. Sorry if I kind of lost you a little bit on the time travel portion. But to go into the pros and cons, what I liked about the movie, I think my favorite part was the time travel and the whole Professor Oak being Sam. I thought that was really cool because, like, it made it more relevant because it wasn't just this random kid that they met from the past that then had to go back into the past after the end. Like, it was cool that they tied that to Professor Oak, his mission as a, you know, Pokemon professor, and him like starting the Pokedex, him having a relationship with Ash. Like, I feel like that really, and, you know, Ash wanting to, you know, always be friends with Professor Oak, and, you know, the fact that they had a friendship even before Ash really knew Professor Oak, and then they formed a bond obviously kind of organically when Professor Oak was old and Ash was young. But then, you know, Ash also, you know, became friends with the young version of Professor Oak. Like, the fact that their friendship, you know, spanned across time, I thought was just really cool. And Professor Oak's always had that kind of in the back of his mind. I'm sure he did, like when he met Ash in Pallet Town. And maybe he went to Pallet Town because he knew Ash would be there. Because I think I remember Ash saying that he was from Pallet Town when he met the young Professor Oak. And who knows, maybe Pallet Town like didn't even exist back then, or maybe it did, but like Sam Oak maybe wasn't even from there. So I wonder if he intentionally like went to Pallet Town to have his research lab because he knew in the future he would meet Ash or would want to meet Ash because he became good friends with him. So that whole thing is just crazy and really cool. And I just thought it really elevated the movie. In terms of like Celebi itself, I don't know, you didn't really get a ton of Celebi in like what it did. Obviously, like the Pokemon in the forest were treating Celebi with a lot of reverence and a lot of respect because Celebi's kind of the guardian of the forest and everything. And Suicune was there to, you know, purify the water. And I thought it was cool that they had an appearance. But and this was definitely this was, granted, there's a lot of Pokemon movies, especially like after this one in the future, where you have like the cute mythical Pokemon, whether it's like Celebi, Jirachi, Victini, Shaman, trying to think of other ones. Oh, like Manphy. So there's like a ton of movies that talk about like mythicals and like the cute ones, but this is the first one, granted, because like the first one was about Mewtwo, second one was about Lugia and the legendary birds, third one was about Entei and the unknown. So this was the first Pokemon movie to have the cute, you know, mythical Pokemon stereotype of, you know, them trying to protect this cute Pokemon that's also like super powerful and stuff like that. So it definitely has nostalgia for that. I don't think Celebi's not my favorite. I don't think out of those like cute ones, it's a cool Pokemon. The time travel part's cool, but I don't know. You don't really get a lot of connection or screen time with Celebi as you would like, I think. And you don't really get the full extent of Celebi's power, but I thought it was all right. And then I thought the villain was cool. I do like the Dark Ball concept. I wish they could have expanded upon it just a little bit more, or like went more into his motivations, like kind of where he came from, the Iron Mask Marauder. Like, we don't really get a ton of backstory about him, but I thought the whole Dark Ball concept was pretty cool. But yeah, you don't really know a lot about him. They were just like, oh yeah, here's this cool technology that can take over Pokemon. Like, and you kind of had a little bit of him with Team Rocket, but it wasn't really a lot. So that's kind of my con. Celebi was all right. The villain wasn't spectacular. Ash and the gang kind of just, you know, ran into everything. Like, the plot just kind of happened kind of by chance, and they were just, you know, in a forest looking for cool Pokemon. But the strength is definitely in the time travel and the relationship between Ash and Sam Oak. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Trying to think. yeah, I can definitely see, like, it's just kind of just your standard, you know, Ash has his intro battle, they meet this cute Pokemon, they protect it from getting stolen, it gets stolen and, you know, gets manipulated and becomes super powerful, and then, yeah, they have to save Celebi, and, yeah. I don't know, it's not my favorite. There's definitely other ones in the future that do this whole kind of stereotype or trope of the mythical cute Pokemon better. And it's going to be coming up here in a couple of movies, actually. So I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. But yeah, I mean, this was the first one. So I think they were still trying to, you know, figure it out a little bit. But I think it was a good movie overall. I like the old style narration or old style animation. And yeah, the Pokemon that did show up that weren't like the legendary Pokemon that was just in the forest, I thought that was cool. But, and yeah, you don't really see any of Ash's other Pokemon. I think it was just Pikachu. Like, I don't even know if you... Oh, and Bayleaf during that fight with Sneasel and Scizor. But besides that, you don't really even get to see Ash's Pokemon that much. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of the pros and cons, what I like, what I didn't like, plot of the movie. Now we'll get into my review. I think if I'm going to review this movie, yeah, it's not like unwatchable, but it's just not super memorable besides the whole time travel stuff. So that definitely, I don't know, yeah, the relationship between Ash and Professor Oak and all that, I think definitely saves this movie, because if that wasn't there, I'd probably give this movie like a 2 out of 5, to be honest, maybe even a 1.5. But I think the fact that it has that, I think I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. I feel pretty good about that. I think I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5, because it's not a 5 out of 5, no way. I think, I think I gave the second one a 3.5 out of 5 and the third one a 3. So yeah, I don't know, it's not, it's kind of, I think I'll give it a 3. Yeah, I'll give it a 3. We're going to give it a 3 out of 5 for now. I may do another video after I do all these movie reviews and like fully kind of tier list or tier rank all these and maybe adjust them a little bit. But I think right now I'm going to say it's a 3 out of 5 because it's a decent movie. First one doing the whole mythical, cute Pokemon trope. The time travel I thought was interesting. The relationship between Ash and Professor Oak was cool. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. So that's it, guys. That is the movie review for Pokemon 4Ever, or Pokemon Celebi, Voice of the Forest. Hope you guys enjoyed this Pokemon movie review. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a great evening, and I will see you on the next one.